this block may not seem like much on the surface, but it actually changed everything about the game. And we're gonna talk about this in the second devlog of Cubicatch. My name is Adam, and for those that are new, Cubicatch is an upcoming puzzle game where you play as a cube, and your goal is to reach the target cube. And you do this by dashing from block to block until you reach the target. In the previous devlog, we talked about kind of the start of the development to its current state. And today we're going to talk about the different blocks that have been added to Cubicatch. But before we dive into this particular block, we first need to look at the other blocks to understand the synergies between them. So let us start with the first block, the brick block. So the first rule of the brick block is that it is destroyed after 2 hits. So for example, if the player would collide on the block twice, then it's gone. However, the second rule is that the distance must be at least 1 game unit between the blocks for a valid hit to occur. And a game unit is about the size of a block. So if the distance would be less than that, the brick block would not take any damage. And the last rule is that a hit is not propagated. So this one is pretty obvious. If another block is between the brick block and the player block, for example, the brick block cannot be destroyed. I can also say that the 2 last rules mentioned are actually shared between all blocks, so do not get confused if I'm not specifying these rules again. Anyway, let's look at a few example levels that can be created with this brick block. The most simple level that can be created is when the only way forward is to break the block. And the idea of this level was to introduce this new mechanic without needing to show any sort of tutorial. So here, the player only needs to move back and forth, like this. I'm taking a bit of inspiration from The Witness, which introduced new mechanics by making the user experiment with it, instead of needing to explain it. I like this method because figuring out a mechanic becomes somewhat of a puzzle in itself. Now let's look at a somewhat more difficult level. This level is designed to make the player instinctively go back and then directly to the right to destroy the block. However, the trick with this level is that the player cannot move back because there exists no block at that position. So the solution is to damage the brick block first from a different angle, and then move to the goal block. The takeaway from this level is that the brick block can just not be destroyed from any angle, that planning is often needed to complete a level. The last brick level I want to show you is that the brick block can also be used as a platform to solve the puzzle. Again, the instinct with this level is to destroy the brick block to get to the other side. However, the player will soon realize that it cannot reach the goal block. The solution here is to move around the brick block and then use it as a platform to reach the goal block. There exist a lot more difficult levels with this brick block, but I think this will do for now. So let us move on to the next block. The crate block. This block has a mechanic where all the momentum is transferred on a hit. That is, if a player collides on the block, it keeps on moving and the player loses all the momentum. The second property is that the momentum transferred can be chained. So, if there are 2 crate blocks, they can transfer the momentum to each other like this. However, if there is no distance between the 2 crate blocks, the rule regarding that a hit is only valid when the distance is equal or greater to 1 is applied. So in this case, the momentum transferred is not applied. So, that was the rules. Now, let's look at some levels again. A simple level in this case would be this one. The idea is to make the player curious what happens when colliding with the crate block. Then see that it moves and understand that it needs to be moved to the other side before moving to the goal block. A more complex level includes building your way to the goal. Here, the player needs to move the 2 blocks to reach the goal in the middle. This will hopefully give the insight that the crate blocks can be used to reach other areas. And lastly, we can also use the momentum chaining to create puzzles. Like this one, where the player needs to first destroy the brick blocks in order to move the blocks away from the way of the goal. This is also an example of different type of blocks can be used in conjunction with each other. So this was the crate block. Now for the third block type. The key block, or more precisely the toggle key block. The key block can be turned off or on. So for example, if the player hits the key block, it turns on, and if hit again, it turns off. So the functionality of a key block is to open doors. So for example, if we have a door that requires 2 keys, the player needs to toggle on the 2 key blocks to open it. And an open door is passable. So for example, the player cannot collide on an open door. However, if the door is closed, then it behaves just like any other block. So let's look at some levels again. A simple level would be this one, with only 1 door and 2 key blocks. And the purpose of this level is to teach the mechanic. A more complex level would be this one. Here, the intuition is to move forward and then left and right in order to open the door. However, doing this will reveal that you no longer can get to the center to reach the goal. Instead, the solution here is to first turn on the key blocks and then destroy the brick block to be in the center with the door open. There exist also other type of key blocks, like the one sensitive to water and another one sensitive to proximity. So that was the key block. Now for the special block. The P block, or so called the perspective block. I'm not really sure how to animate this block, to be honest, so I think it's easier to show you the block in action instead. So, this is the first level for the perspective block. In this level, you quickly realize that it's impossible to reach the goal block with the known mechanics. However, after a few seconds you can see a prompt to activate the perspective block. Doing this will change the entire world to 2D. The 2D is from the perspective you look from. I can for example look at a different angle and then activate the perspective block. Now the 2D view is from a different viewpoint. The physics also changes. You can see that I can reach the block while in 2D, but not 3D. You can also rotate the camera in 2D to snap to different angles. But let us complete this level and look at another. Here, the player needs to change the perspective first to reach the first platform block. And then rotate again to reach the goal block. The next one is also a tutorial level. Here, the player needs to go through the hole to reach the goal. But first, the player needs to activate the 2D perspective in order to get to the position. If the player is now trying to get through the hole in 2D, it will not work. Again, this is because the physics also changes in 2D. That is, the hole does not exist. But in 3D, it do exist. So the takeaway from this level is that both 2D and 3D is often needed to solve these perspective levels. Here is another fun level that shows you the synergies between the crate block and the perspective block. We can see here that the player cannot reach the goal block or the crate blocks. What the player needs to do here is to change to 2D, then push the crate blocks down. You can also see here that the crate blocks also follow the changed physics in 2D. When all the crate blocks are in place, you can reach the goal. This one is also pretty cool. In 3D, this level looks very complicated, but activating 2D will reveal that it's very simple. Or is it? The last level I want to show you is this one. In this level, the player just needs to activate 2 key blocks to open the door. We activate this one, and then the one at the other side. This level also shows a fundamental logic to the perspective block. If we look at the level again, we can see it in action. So the logic is that you always collide with the block that is closest to the camera. So if the camera is here, then this block is the closest one. But if we look from the other side, and then also activate the 2D perspective, the camera is here and the closest block here. So if you master this particular rule, all the perspective levels becomes a bit easier. As you can imagine, there are a lot of interesting puzzles that can be created with this perspective block. And we have even more blocks. For example, a block that attaches to the player. And this can get pretty crazy. We also have this corrupt block that consumes everything, even the player. I'll let you guys explore the blocks yourself. So this devlog was kind of more of a showcase of the different levels and mechanics, but I did not really delve into the technical details. So if you want to kind of see the code and the technical implementation of the different mechanics, let me know in the comments and I will try to do a new devlog with that in mind. Yeah, so it really helps me if you like and subscribe, and if you are interested in the game, it helps me a lot if you wishlist the game on Steam. Links in the description below. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks so much for watching and see you in the second devlog. Bye.